Name is Deepa Bhasthi. So I'm a writer. I'm a writer translator as well. And so among the other work that I've done, Heart Lamp, which is a translation of Banu Mushtaq's stories, short stories, won the International Booker Prize. And this is the first time that an Indian translator has won this prize. And it's also the first time a person of color, which is a non-white person, has won the Booker. On the International Booker, and so a lot of us. This is the first time a work from Kannada has won. It's the first short story collection. So a lot of firsts in the list. Happy to answer any questions you might have, or just talk about literature, anything, whatever works.
So, ma'am, what does that mean for you personally?
Well, of course, it's an amazing personal achievement. This is only my third work in translation from the Kannada language. Please. So it is wonderful to be recognized for my translation work so early on in my career. Of course, I'm also excited for what it will mean for translations from not just Kannada but from other, especially South Indian languages or languages from other South Asian literature as well. So yeah, so I'm happy to answer any questions if you have. Or
So, I read somewhere that these book judges, they praised your translation.
Yeah.
So, it happens very rare. I know that I read many of the translations, and I know the opinion on the translations by the others also.
Yeah.
I think this is a very, very rare chapter. So, what is the way that you prepared yourselves
Okay.
to have a firm grip of the contemporary British idiom?
Okay.
So, are you using British idiom or American idiom?
Indian idiom.
That's what I was.
Yeah. So, firstly, so the way I started thinking about this project was that I didn't want it to be a translation into British English or American English or whatever, because that's not how we Indians speak our English. I mean, people from Karnataka speak English very differently from those who speak from Malayalam. Malayalam speakers or any language you take, we all have our accents, and that's a wonderful thing to have these accents, because that means that we come from other linguistic cultures as well. So for me, retaining that was very important. I was not trying to sound like a British person or an American person or whatever. So that became very important, and I think that is the one good thing about the International Booker is that they recognize the translation part. So, I mean, in case you don't know, so the Booker is divided into two. One is the Booker itself, which is given for books written originally in English. So, which is why Arundhati Roy and Salman Rushdie and all of these. So, the International Booker used to be called the Man Booker earlier. So I think previously Professor U.R. Ananthamurthy had been shortlisted. This was, I think, 2013, I think. So back then it used to be given for books for a lifetime's work from whatever language. So now the International Booker is given for one piece of one work. It could be a novel or a short story. Which is translated from any language in the world into English, that has to be published in the UK. So that's how it came about, and I think the recognition for the translation of this particular book was very important because it tries to, well, it is not a new English, it's the English we speak as Indians, but I suppose in a published book format that's not very often seen.
Can we call it Indian English?
It is Indian English. I mean, we've always had Indian English. We might not theoretically call it that, but for example, the way we say, you do one thing, that's a very Indian way of saying things. I don't think that's not seen as a very proper English. And first of all, there's nothing called a proper English. English is one of those languages which is so different.
Kannada idioms in Hindi?
Yes, some of them. For example, this is not in the book, but in Kannada we have this proverb "Durada betta nunnige."
Ah,
So that is there is an equivalent for it in English. The grass is greener on the other side.
yes.
So that's the literal translation. But I didn't want to do things like that. You know, I wanted to retain the Durada betta nunnige into English as well. Yeah, yeah. Not in this particular, not in Heartland, but somewhere else I'd done that. So these small decisions were very important for me, and also, for example, the way we say small, or we say two times. You know, those things are also it's very Indian ways of saying it.
I'm happy that the judges found it very strong.
Yeah.
They said that the translation is remarkable.
Yeah. So also I think it is this, there is a need to, I don't know, maybe decolonize the idea of translation itself, because typically what happens is that when a book is translated from any Indian language to English, for example, there is a tendency to use spellings the way they are used in the North. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's fine for them. For example, in Heartland, I've made sure that roti, we don't say in South India, we don't say roti, we say roti. So it's Rotti. And I made sure that was how it was written in the book. Because no South Indian is going to say akki roti, right? So it's akki roti. And these are very small decisions that are taken in translation. Or sire, for example. We say sire, we don't say sari when we speak in Kannada. So retaining that was important, because you're also telling readers in another language that this is how we do things. We don't say roti. It's not there is no pan-Indian English either. If you go up north, they speak Hindi, they speak English very differently from how we speak.
So have you experimented even with syntax of sentence?
Yes. Yeah, I would, if you could read it at some point, the translation, you would know that. Yeah.
With the book of rights and translation, do you think there will be a shift of Indian literature? Because up to some time there was a notion that Indian literature is not part with the Western, language or literature. So now, do you think that there would be a global shift and more people, the Westerners, will be reading Indian literature more?
I hope so. I mean, that's the ideal scenario, and I'm very skeptical of this Indian literature not being as good. Like, who determines this? This is just a set of probably white publishers who are sitting there in offices in New York or London saying this is not good enough. So that is what one hopes to change by bringing in these Indian or Kannada idioms into the English language. Because we are not trying to write like the Americans or the British or whoever else. We are writing from our own experiences with the knowledge of the multilingual, experiences we all have. And I'm sure all of us here speak at least 3 or 4 languages, or at least have some knowledge of 3 or 4 languages. And those are the experiences that we bring into the translation as well. We are not a monolingual culture like many Western countries are, right? So hopefully that will change. But again, it's a systemic change that needs to happen, right? I mean, it's not just one person's job to change the entire publishing sphere. So hopefully things will change. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you have follow-up? No. Right. So I'm Divya.
Sit.
So I study at MAHE, and we actually have one of your stories in our syllabus, the Arabic teacher, the Gobi Manchuri.
Okay.
And I actually have a question about your role as a translator. And this might come across a silly question, but I'm curious.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I want to know, how much space for creativity do you have as a translator when you are interpreting the original work and translating? Because I read a story about translation, and there is this one character who says a translator essentially dances in shackles across a field, while a poet can run around and dance in any rhythm that they want. So I would love to know your take on how much role of creative interpretation you have.
It's a great question, actually, because I think there was a generation of translators who who subscribe to the idea of translators being invisible in the work, and I don't believe in that at all. Because there is this idea of transcreation as well. In Kannada, we say bhava anuvada. It's not a Shabda Anuvada. It's not a literal translation. So, and whether you're writing something originally, whether you're writing something from scratch or translating, I think we all as creative people bring in our own lived experiences onto the text. Or if you're creating, I don't know, a film or whatever piece of art that you're making, we bring in so much of our own lived experiences, so much of what we read, what we watch, what we listen to. All of these things somehow kind of seep into, the text that is the work that is produced in the end. So I think that way there is a lot of the translator also. Whether it is acknowledged or not, that's a very different,
Yes.
argument altogether.
Yes.
But I think that is always there.
Absolutely.
It is.
Because I
It
really
is.
appreciated that sometimes the narrative voice would feel like I'm in the inner monologue. So in
Yeah.
the first story, there was a particular phrase called hot samosas, which
Yeah.
is not something we typically use in English when I'm in conversation.
Yeah.
But that really captured the authenticity because
Yeah.
that's how we say, like, for example, even in Hindi, like garam garam.
Yeah,
And
it's there in
yeah.
most Indian languages, I would say.
It was there, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Thank you so
because
much.
you're welcome. Because I think that's something, right? I mean, these stories were not originally written in English. They come from another language. So my idea was to locate these stories in a particular linguistic culture, and if that means retaining this hot samosa or two times, or all the exaggerations that we have in all our Indian languages, then so be it.
Thank you so much for this.
Right now, I don't have time to work on anything, but I'm working on. There's this short novel by this writer called Samudrata Venkatraman. Ide andre ide, illa andre illa. So it's a wonderful, beautiful novel. It's a very short, I think hardly about 120 pages, but spans an entire century. Only Kannada to English. No. I can speak other languages, but no, I can't. There's a 1,500 years worth of work in Kannada. I think I'm set for life. Actually. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Was the first attempt from your side to translate the name of translation because I haven't read your other books,
Sure.
so that's fine.
I think not. I mean, to be very honest, a lot of these ideas that I was talking about, this roti and all of that, it was a very instinctive process for me. And it's only when I looked back and I was being asked these questions, I realized, oh, this is why I must have done it. And so my first work was Kodagina Gaurama's short stories, and then I did a novel by Kota Shivram Karant as well. And I'm told that I can't bear to read my older works. They look very juvenile right now, but I was told that there is a lot of the Kannada essence in the Shivram Karant novel as well. So I like to think of it as carrying the hum of the Kannada language, the musicality of it into English as well. So not my first, but again, like any art, it's a practice that one does. So I'm hoping that the next one will have something a little more solidified in terms of these ideas, hopefully. Yede Hanate. Yede Hanate.
Exactly the same stories in the country.
Right now there is. So these 12 stories were chosen from 6 short story collections. So now the Kannada publisher has brought out a volume of only these 12 stories.
And that is called
That's called Yede Hanate. Yede Hanate is both the title of a particular story and a title of a collection. I think it was published in the early 2000s. Or I'm sorry, I could be mistaken. Or the late 1990s or something. So, yeah. ಯಾವ್ದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಿಂದ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ಗೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಇದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ಲಿ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾ ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರಿಗೂ ಇದೀಗ? ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ? ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರೋರು ಇದಾರೆ ಅಂತ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೋ ಯು ಆರ್ ಆಸ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಇಫ್ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಅದರ್ ಕನ್ನಡ ಟು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ಸ್. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಶ್ಯೂರ್ ಬಂದಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಈಗ ನಾನ್ ಸದ್ಯ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ my biggest problems is when I'm working on a translation, I can't read other translations. Okay. Hello, of course, I've read his translations. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸಾರಿ, ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ಲಿ ಓದಲಿಲ್ಲ ನಾನು. ನೋ ಪ್ರೆಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ. Yes, yeah. So my problem is that I can't read another translation from Kannada to English when I'm translating myself. It just messes with with the voice. So I have a lot of catching up to do. I have not read. So adike. Okay. Okay. ಇಲ್ಲ, ನನ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಅವ್ರೇನೋ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ. ಹೇಳಿ.
ಈಗ ಮಾತಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದು ಮಾಡಿ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ನೀವೊಂದು ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಆದಂತ ಕೃತಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಾಮ್ಯ ನಮ್ಮೂ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ನಮ್ಮದು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಬಾನು ಇವ್ರದ್ದು ಹೆಂಗಿರತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡಿವೈನ್ಮೆಂಡೇ ಇವತ್ತು ತುಂಬಾ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಮಾತು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ತಾತ್ವಿಕ ಭಿನ್ನತೆ ಐ ಡೂ ಎಗ್ರಿ. ಈಗ ಮಹೇಶ್ ಕುಂದೂರು ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಕನ್ನಡದ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನನಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡದ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಮರಾಠಿ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಕುಂತಾರ್ಗಿದೆ. ಹಾಗಿರುವಾಗ ಆ ಪತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದ್ವಂದ್ವಾರ್ಥಗಳಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಫ್ಲೋರ್ನ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಆಗೆಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಅದ್ರ ನೀವು ಅದರ ಭಾಷೆ ನಿಮ್ದು ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಕನ್ನಡ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಸ್ತು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಬಾಂಧಿಸ್ ವಸ್ತು ಬಾನೋದಂತ ಒಂದು ನೀವು ಅರ್ಥನೂ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬೇರೆ ಭಾಷೆಗೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಸಿಗ್ನೇಚರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಿಗ್ನೇಚರ್ ಇಂದ ಹೋಗತ್ತಾದ್ರು ಹೋಗಕ್ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನೀವು ಕೂಡ ಸೊ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕಲ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಈಗ ಮುಂದೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಈಗ
ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ಇರೋದು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್, ರೀಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಇರೋ
ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಹೌದು,
ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಒಪ್ಸೋದಿದೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ರೈಟರ್ ಒಪ್ಸೋದಿದೆ. ನಾನು ಅಕ್ಕಮಾದೇವಿ ಅನುವಾದ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಸಾಮ್ಯ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದವರು ಹೋಗಿ ನಾನು ಹಿಂದಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಕ್ಕಮಾದೇವಿ ಜೊತೆ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ.
ಹೌದು, ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ.
ಅವ್ರು ಯಾರು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ ಸಾಧ್ಯ. ಆ ಕೋ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ,
ಅದೇ ಕೋ ಇಸ್ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ದ ಕೀ ವರ್ಡ್.
ಟೈಮ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ನನ್ನ ಕೈಲಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಸಮಾಧಾನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಕೋ ಇಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಅದಿರೋದು ಲೀಗಲ್ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟಲ್
ಅಲ್ಲ. ಈಗ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದ ಈಗ ಪೆಂಗ್ವಿನ್ ರ್ಯಾಂಡಮ್ ಹೌಸ್ ಏನಿದೆಯೋ, ವಿ ಆರ್ co-signatories of the contract. It is not an exclusive. ಈಗ ಒಂದೇ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇತ್ತು, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ವೆದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಡ್ವಾನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ರಾಯಲ್ಟೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಆರ್ ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ co-signatories. ಸೊ ಹೌದು, ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದೇ ಅದು ಅಲ್ಲ, ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಸುಮಾರು ಇನ್ನೆಲ್ಲಿಗೂ ಹೋಗ್ತಿರ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಈಗ
ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಕನ್ನಡ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ನೀವು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ
ಅಲ್ಲ, that is there. It is all about, ಈಗ I am not claiming full credit. Absolutely. ಅದೇ, it is not about claiming.
But morally,
Yeah.
morally it was right.
Yeah. I agree. So ನಾನು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ
ನನ್ನ ನಾಟಕ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕು, ಇವ್ರು ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಕುಂಜಾರ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ,
ಹೌದು.
ಅವ್ರ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್
ಹೌದು.
ಹಾಗಾಗಿರೋದು ಅದನ್ನ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಅಲ್ಲ, of course, I agree with all of you. And ಅದು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ, see, the stage is not a forum to discuss, get ಏನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತ್ರೆ
ಇದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. You have to say when it is smooth. You have to ಹತ್ತು ಸರಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು
ಅಲ್ಲ, I agree. I'm not.
Isn't it? Legally, she is forced to be.
Yeah.
Unless she is science, ಹೌದು ಯಾವುದೇ ಸಾಧನೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇವ್ರು ಯಾಕೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ
Of course, exclusive. ಹೌದು. So for these, ಅಲ್ಲ, ಈ 12 ಕಥೆಗಳಿಗೆ I have exclusive ಇದು for this collection. ಈಗ not for all her work. ಈಗ ಅವರದ್ದು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ, but this particular collection ಇದಕ್ಕೆ. Yeah, that is there. See, all this is, if we are talking about a legal point of view, we are legally bound by a particular contract where this is my translation. It is. So it's a legal thing also. Yeah. So it's not about.
I differ from Deepa. That way.
Mike ಇದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅಂತ. Oh.
Yes.
After this, there will be a book signing. So if you have any other questions, then you can ask it.
Yes, she will come.
As we all know, English is a global language, but our Kannada literature goes beyond that. Its literary heritage holds the potential to address global problems. It reflects the interest of diverse people across the world. However, to make the literacy richness accessible, we need to translate Kannada literature to English. But is it practical to make Kannada or any Indian language as a global language for betterment of society? If yes, how can we achieve it?
No, first of all, Kannada is a global language. I don't think there is any hierarchy between languages. English is not greater than Kannada, or Kannada is not greater than, any other language. All languages have the potential to see the world, to experience the world, to talk about the world as well. So I don't think of Kannada as a local language which is restricted to only Kannada speakers or only to Karnataka or wherever, within certain geographical boundaries. So when that is the case, what is the question of making it a global language? It is already a global language. I agree there needs to be a lot more translations. But that, of course, is, there need to be a lot more translators to begin with. So hopefully that will change. But then just because it is translated, it does not make it a global language. Kannada has always been a global language. It can address the greatest of philosophical thought or abstraction or whatever. It can talk about these things in the Kannada. You can talk about it in the Kannada language.
But so, making Kannada literature accessible to across the world.
It's translation. Translators. Translations.
Or the translation is the only.
Translation, because that's how languages talk with each other, right? The only reason we read Tolstoy or Marquez or whichever other global writers is because of translations. You can't read, not many people can learn Russian and if you read Tolstoy in the original. So only when there is translation that there is this exchange of culture that happens, culture and language and all of that. Thank you so much.